The Jazz tend to be limited offensively, and you don't have a lot of depth, and in my opinion anyway, you don't have a lot of diversity in the way that you play basketball if you're the Utah Jazz. And so it is not surprising to see that they are on a historic pace for shooting threes. And when I say a historic pace, it is number of threes per game. It is, in general, the best way to say it is they are living and dying on the three. And I think we've seen over the history of this league, whether that is the Golden State Warriors, the Houston Rockets come to mind. When you live and die on the three, Jake, you are not long for this NBA world.
Yeah, I just think it's really tough to make an NBA three by it's just really tough to make that shot. And so when you talk about shooting it in volume, you got to make a lot of those to be able to win games. Like you can't shoot 30% from three and win an NBA game as a team. And so I look at this roster and I say, well, what led them to going to this format where they're shooting so many threes? Well, I think the roster they've built caters to that. You look at Joe Ingles, you look at Bogey.
It's Jingles, please.
Yeah, Jingles. Sorry, Jingles, Bogey, Royce O'Neal from time to time will take his fair share of threes. I look at Jordan Clarkson, obviously Donovan Mitchell. So you got a bunch of guys who like to shoot the basketball. The problem is that you don't have a bunch of guys who can run an offense and get to the basket consistently. And then you have the Rudy conversation, which we've had so many times on this show. So I think you look at their roster, and unfortunately, it kind of backs them into this corner where they're forced to shoot a bunch of threes. And yeah, I think the difference between them and the Golden State Warriors is the Golden State Warriors, they don't just shoot threes, but they shoot the three at an elite level. You're talking about two of the best shooters the game's ever seen. The Jazz don't have that. They're I'm not going to say they're mediocre shooters, but they're not shooting at the level the Warriors were.
Oh, I don't think they're mediocre at all, and I would agree with you. That's probably the wrong terminology to use. But when I look at where the Jazz are at this point, I just think you're not on that level. Like you don't have, the best 1-2 punch shooting combination the NBA's ever seen. You didn't add a guy like Kevin Durant, who is arguably the best scorer in the NBA right now. You didn't have James Harden on the Rockets. You don't have that guy. And with all due respect to Donovan Mitchell, I think he has exponentially improved his shooting, mid-range and three ball. But my biggest concern with this Jazz team is that all of these threes they're making are covering a lot of the scars, are covering a lot of the wounds that exist on this roster, a lot of the handicaps on this roster that are going to prevent them from being dominant in the Western Conference. Because at the end of the day, I will still maintain that Royce O'Neal cannot be starting on this team. And if the option is to start Joe Ingles, you're probably not good enough to win the Western Conference. I know that you're a top three team right now. You're not as good as the Lakers, and we're going to talk about LeBron in a minute. The Lakers are 10-0 on the road.
Yeah.
They are, in my opinion, the Lakers are the best team in the NBA. I think the Clippers have finally figured it out. I think they're playing much better basketball. I think you're seeing upsets on a nightly basis. Don't ask me how Dame lost to OKC last night. No idea. That's a terrible loss.
Yeah, not good.
But all of this to say, the Western Conference is better and deeper, and I don't think the Jazz have improved, and I think they're the same team that lost in the bubble last year.
Yeah, well, and let's say that they have improved. I mean, they're still not as good as the Lakers, and the problem is, and this is really where the rubber meets the road if you're this Jazz squad, it's not good enough to just make the postseason anymore. It's not like, oh yeah, we made the postseason, whoop-de-doo. Like, that's not good enough for this organization anymore. It's not good enough for Donovan Mitchell as a player on his own either. And so, the expectation is that you will, I would say the expectation is you'll get to a Western Conference Finals. That would, to me, that's the expectation at a minimum. And yeah, a finals appearance would be, what they want, of course. But they're not balanced enough. They don't, you can't rely on the three that much and then think that you're going to beat the Clippers, think that you're going to beat the Nuggets, think that you're certainly going to beat the Lakers, because all three of those teams, have the ability to get to the basket. Two of them do it through big men, and the Clippers do it through just straight up talent and size, so that's why I say if you're the team that's just constantly, settling for threes, because that's really what it is. You don't build an offense to shoot threes. You don't do that. The reason they shoot so many threes, if you watch them on a nightly basis, is because they don't have an ability to get to the basket consistently unless it's Donovan playing one-on-one. So it's just not a great situation to be in. So then this three-point conversation takes us to the Rudy conversation, because as long as Rudy's on this team, you're not going to have a ton of money to mess around with this roster.
So we're back on the contract.
Well, but is it not a main point of this conversation?
Oh, I don't think it's I don't think it's the biggest problem with this team. Mm-hmm. I think it's a problem for this team.
Right.
I think their financial flexibility has been taken away by that contract, and the fact that you're not going to be able to move it even if you wanted to. For probably about a year from now. Mm-hmm. I think that absolutely is an issue. And I think that this team, the Jazz are clearly very good. They're just not elite. They're not, in my opinion, they're not the Lakers or the Clippers. I know that.
Say. They're the Hall very good.
They're
the best.
Are they the Denver Nuggets? That matchup has been very difficult for the Jazz. And granted, I don't trust Jamal Murray to be a leader of that team, but I also look at the way that they play team ball. I mean, they got a win last night after Jamal Murray got ejected for a flagrant 2 over one of the most overrated players in the NBA, and Luka Doncic, in his, I got another triple-double. Put him in the Hall of Fame right now. He's better than Jordan. Anyway, point is, and Denver still found a way to get a win. Denver's a gritty, tough basketball team. The Jazz are not. I think that Rudy has trouble with Jokic. So, anyway, here and there. I don't think I would not put them in the top 3 of the Western Conference. Mm-hmm. Their record, I think, is stellar. I think they're shooting the ball historically well. You cannot rely on that.
No.
That at the end of the day, that's what the biggest issue with the Jazz are. Like, I turned my attention to the Lakers from last night. I look at the way LeBron James is shooting the basketball right now. I look at the way that he took over that game. Now, he was extra motivated. It was in Cleveland. Some of the how shall I say, unwise members of the Cleveland Cavaliers staff were, kind of chirping at him and talking a little bit of junk at LeBron, and so he decided to dominate that game. And what LeBron did there is show you he's still the guy that was in the bubble last year. He's still capable of being the best player in the world. And he absolutely torched the Cleveland Cavaliers last night, Jake. And I think in the process of doing that, he reestablished the Lakers as by far and clearly the best team in the NBA.
Yeah, and I just think that, with what LeBron's able to do still at this age, I mean, truly, I think we can say there's not really a fall off in sight yet. I mean, the ability to play at this level is crazy at this age. And yeah, I think, you take LeBron, then you combine that with AD. Then I look at Trez Harrell last night, absolutely being a force down low.
What a pickup that guy has been.
Yeah.
I didn't think he could get better than he was with the Clippers. Mm-hmm. He's absolutely, he has transformed the way that they use their bench.
Yeah.
And if you look at the way, like JaVale McGee was in that role essentially last year.
Right.
Dwight Howard was in that role last year. They've got the best of both worlds because Trez can shoot a little bit of a jumper. He is a great rebounder, and he is a nasty spirit.
Yeah.
Down
he wants
low.
To play defense.
Yeah, I mean, he wants to get his nose dirty. He doesn't care. And I think the other thing that he does really well, he runs the break, and the Lakers, his teammates clearly trust him.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Montrezl Harrell has been arguably the signing of the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, he's been sensational, and I think, every great championship caliber team needs a guy like Montrezl Harrell who, like you said, wants to get his nose dirty, wants to play the gritty style of basketball because, again, you look at, he's essentially their Dennis Rodman, if you will, he plays that role, and he does a damn good job at it, and I think overall, yeah, it's to me in the league in the big picture, the Lakers are on their own level, and then it's basically everybody else because every other team that you want to look at, whether it be the Clippers, they don't have a big man, right? They got to rely on shooting and in the mid range game to win games. So that's their weakness, which the
Yes.
Lakers can exploit greatly. I look at the Nuggets. The Nuggets are simply just not as talented as the Lakers are across their roster. So the Lakers end up winning a lot of matchups. And when I look at AD versus Jokic, AD is going to dominate that every time because of his athleticism.
Where are you at with Golden State? Because I think this Wiseman situation is an interesting call. To put him back on the bench, I think it very clearly limits his impact on the game.
Right.
Rebounding-wise. Mm-hmm. But they felt like he was in a little bit over his head. They moved him back to the bench, and it doesn't really impact them.
Right. That's what they've always been, though. I mean, the Warriors have always been a team that's been able to play relatively small and have success. I mean, again, before Durant got there, they won a title with, Curry, Clay, and Draymond as their centers. So clearly they understand how to play small, but I think Wiseman is their future, and I'm a big advocate for making rookies earn their time on the court. Number one, when they're young in the league. Here we go. But number two, I think he is over his head. I think he doesn't understand quite yet fully how to play with Steph. He doesn't understand when to let Steph play one-on-one and when to set screens for Steph. And there's a very...
Well, and he had been wandering on defense. Yeah. He had been wandering on defense, and I think it was as simple as that. Just I'm curious how he rebounds from this. I mean, Kevon Looney's a guy that's not going to be a 40-minute-a-night guy. I think he played 19 minutes last night.
But he's trustworthy, and he's in the right spot. And he does what you need him to do.
But Wiseman now is only playing 16 minutes a game. Mm-hmm. And you don't, with practice time shrinking, I mean, you just don't get very much practice time in this league anymore. I think it's very difficult to develop a player. And I say the same thing about LaMelo Ball. It is very difficult to develop a player when you're not starting. Like, I look at James Wiseman, and I think he could absolutely develop much, much more quickly playing 25, 30 minutes a night. Now, I'm not an NBA coach or a general manager. They clearly saw something there that they felt like they needed to put him back on the bench, and they did. By the way, they're playing much better basketball of late, and a lot of that is tied to Steph Curry just being a firework. The guy goes off on a nightly basis here in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And they're very difficult to stop. All of this before we get to, benching and starting rookies. I look at the teams that are currently qualified in the Western Conference to make the playoffs. I look at the Phoenix Suns. That's a really difficult team to match up with.
Yep.
I mean, I would not want to see them in a 7-game series.
No, they're the team that can knock you out in the first round when you're playing them.
No question about that. And I think it's really interesting to see the impact that Chris Paul has had on that team. I wonder where the Jazz are. I mean, if you look at their numbers, the Jazz are scoring 113 points a game. They're giving up 106.
Mm-hmm.
That's a nice spread, right? The Lakers lead the league in point differential. They're plus 10, essentially. So the Jazz are putting up these numbers that make it look good. My question is this sustainable? And I just don't know, out of this particular group, how is this sustainable?
Yeah, look, I mean, all you have to look at is their postseason performances the last, couple of years. I mean, I can remember, 3-4 years ago, us talking on this show about how they were battling to be a 5 seed, and now they're battling to be a 3 seed. Well, what's really changed? Really think about this. What really changes between you being a 5 seed and you being a 3 seed in the postseason? At the end of the day, you're still going to go out and have to beat a team 4 times to move on. And they're not able to do that at the highest level. They're not.
Yeah, and I think when you look at some of the numbers, I mean, the Jazz are number 3 in attempts this year. They shoot 41.5 threes a game. Number 2 in percentage. They're making 40% of their threes.
Mm-hmm.
That's a massive number. I mean, to be making 40% of your threes, and when you put that together, they're making 16.8 3-pointers a game.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's a great number, but listen.
But my point is you're not going to win with that.
What's going to happen when they're in the postseason, their legs are tired because they've been playing all season, and they shoot 20% from three in a 7-game series? What's going to happen?
Well, they're going to rely on Rudy Gobert to play with his back to the basket, and
Donovan's going to cut, right? And Rudy's going to be able to pass it to him? Oh, that's right. Rudy doesn't do that.
You're a hater.
I am a hater. That contract is garbage, dude. It's limiting them. It's keeping them from winning a championship. And frankly, the way the team is set up, they're not set up to beat the best teams in the West, which unfortunately they play in the West, not the East. So they got to go through those teams to get to where they want to go.
Well, they're yeah. I mean, they've got some. Look, they're playing great basketball right now. Mm-hmm. I think it's as simple as that. They get a Knick team tonight, followed by back-to-backs with Dallas. All three of those are at home, and then they go to Denver. I mean, I don't happen to love the way the Dallas Mavericks play basketball.
No.
I happen to think that they're way too heavily reliant on Luka doing these incredible things. Where are you at with him? Like, listen, I have a lot of respect for his game, but I do not enjoy. He's not a guy that I'm like, oh, Luka's on TV, I got to watch that.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely plays an entitled brand of basketball, for sure. I think because his path has been different, meaning that he didn't come to the league out of college. He came to the league from Europe, obviously, after winning championships there and doing a bunch of great things. Yeah, I mean, he's a nice player, but like I'm not sitting here saying, man, Luka's on TV, I better watch, or it's Luka and whoever in a 7-game series. I better be all over that series. I'm not doing that the way I'm doing it with LeBron or Durant or even Steph on a bad Warriors team. Those guys are the guys that I resonate with, and I think most of the league resonates with. But to put a bow around this Jazz thing, like, yeah, they're playing great basketball. Yeah, they are a really good team. But as a Jazz fan, can you honestly sit here and tell me that it's good enough for them to just be a good team? Is it good enough for them to just play, 600 basketball, get to the postseason, and then lose the third series or the second series?
Are they a championship contender? Are the Utah Jazz a team that's going to compete for an NBA championship? Are they a team we should expect to see in the Western Conference Finals?
I don't think so, but I think they're a 2-round team. I don't think they get to the Western Conference Finals.
And I think they're so far to go. We're just in the last week of January.
Yeah, there's a long way to go.
I mean, we're talking about an All-Star game in March. We're not even at Valentine's Day. We're not at a trade deadline. There is so much basketball to be played. But having said that, with the dismantling of the Houston Rockets, there are very clearly far fewer potholes in this conference. Mm-hmm. Oklahoma City's not very good.
Nope.
Except
if they're playing Portland. Don't forget that.
Okay. I look at again. And I hate saying it about the Warriors because I love that's a team that's average that's really fun to watch.
They are, yeah.
They're not a championship contender right now.
Mm-mm. And they know that. And that's the thing. And this is the discussion. The Warriors know. They have the ability to say, hey, we know that we're not going to compete for a championship this year, but we also know that we may be good enough, just barely good enough to scrape into the postseason. That's going to be our goal this year, just to scrape in. If we scrape into the postseason, it's been a hell of a year. Steph had an awesome year. Wiseman developed nicely for us. We got something out of a year when we were never going to compete for a championship. So they have the ability, and this is something you always say, they understand where they are, where they want to go. They understand their deficiencies. They understand who they are as a basketball team. I cannot confidently say that the front office, the new ownership and the front office of this Jazz squad understands where they want to go. They may have a set goal, right? They may be saying to themselves, hey, we want to get to the NBA Finals. That's our set goal. But can you honestly say they know where they are if they're signing Rudy to that level of a contract, or they're not moving certain guys, or they're not doing
I think they know where they are. The question is, do they know how to get to where they want to go? That's the biggest question.
Yeah.
I think there is always a fine line between placating your fan base and winning basketball games. And I think in a market like here in Salt Lake City, your fan base is really important to you. They need to buy your merch. They need to buy tickets. They need to show up. They need to watch games on TV and listen on the radio. And I think there was a point. In fact, I know there was a point where they were trying to trade Rudy Gobert. And I think pretty much everything stopped once they got serious about this sale. And I think, I think there is some shell-shocked. Like from the Gordon Hayward situation, I think there was a little tread lightly with Rudy Gobert. That's something that's been talked about a lot.
You really think so?
Yeah, I think that would. Well, I don't think so. It's people have asked me about it around the NBA. I know quite a few people around the NBA, and a lot of people wondered if losing Gordon Hayward the way they lost Gordon Hayward played a role in the way that they signed Rudy Gobert and the way they went about that. And I think it's absolutely the truth. I think they feel like Gordon Hayward stomped on their balls and they were not going to let that happen again. And
well, that is what happened.
That is what happened.
Yeah.
And a lot of that's on Gordon. I don't think he was honest.
I'm
the
saying that's what happened
unintentional
with Gobert. That Gobert stomped on their balls because they offered him a contract.
Yes.
He said, no, I want this much, and they ended up paying him anyway. And my point just is, hey, great, I understand that is what happened with Gordon. You made a mistake with Gordon. You should have never let him get to the open market as, what was he, a restricted free agent?
But then you got to remember, like that like blog post that unaccidentally was published, and I made a decision. Like that whole thing, I think embarrassed the Jazz quite a bit.
Well, it is. I mean, it is embarrassing. There's no question about it. They handled it poorly.
So my point is, I think that there was a little shell shock there, and I think that the Jazz were not. I think the Jazz were not willing to let him go because, again, one of the other things, and I hate getting into this, but I think it's an important conversation when we're talking about the Jazz.
Yep.
I don't believe that the Jazz front office and ownership believes that they're going to be able to recruit high-level, top-line players here.
I completely agree.
I think they don't believe that.
Yeah.
So I think they're willing to overpay a guy like Rudy Gobert to keep him, even though he is incredibly limiting to them in crucial situations and stretches during the season.
Right.
You cannot rely on Rudy offensively in the last 7 minutes of a game.
Right.
Now, is he going to be a rim wrecker defensively? Yes. He's going to block shots, cause turnovers. He's going to force teams to take long shots. But what we're seeing more and more is that teams are working around that, and teams are pulling him away from the basket. All of that to say, I think the Jazz were more willing to sign him because they don't believe that they could get a replacement for him.
That's highly unfortunate. I think... Yeah, I would agree that, the ultra superstar player is not coming to the Utah Jazz. But I also agree that does not mean, and that's not an excuse to not be a successful team. I mean, you look at what OKC was for a while, right? They got CP3. I mean, he's a high-level player. You can go and look at, other average teams, and they are able to do some decent things, but the Jazz, maybe it is maybe it is a mindset thing with the front office where they just aren't going after these higher level, players. They're not having the conversations with other organizations.
Oh, I think they're trying. I think the Jazz wanted to be involved in the James Harden trade, whether as a primary or a secondary.
Example. Yeah.
I think they wanted to be involved. This is the Phoenix Suns. The Suns are always
now too.
Yeah, but the Suns. How did the Suns change it? They went and got Chris Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They committed to spending more money, getting a new arena, building a new practice facility. Like they took themselves out of the doldrums. Now they still have arguably the worst owner in the NBA, right?
Yeah.
But the point is they changed. And I hate the term. Well, they changed our culture. No, they didn't. They spent money and built a new building and a new facility. That's why their fortunes have changed quite a bit.
Right.
But my point is, this goes back to the Donovan Mitchell, Shaquille O'Neal, is Donovan Mitchell a superstar conversation?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because if you're convinced that you're not going to get superstars to come to Salt Lake City, can you rely on Donovan Mitchell to make a B player and a B plus player, or bring up because Royce O'Neal is who he is. He's never going to improve. This is who Royce O'Neal, this is who Joe Ingles, this is who Mike Conley, this is who Rudy Gobert. They are going to be these guys. You know who they are. You know who they're going to be.
And you know who they're not.
And here we are. The only guy that's going to raise the tide, and a rising tide raises all ships, is Donovan Mitchell.
Right.
And until you get a legitimate number 2 scorer, and it's not Jordan Clarkson, with all due respect.
Yeah.
Until you get a number 2 scorer, this team's fortunes are not going to change.
Yeah.
It is that simple.
While you were talking, I was trying to sit here and think about, players that could really make an impact but aren't like superstar caliber players. I look at a guy I look at the Zach LaVines of the world. I look at the Aaron Gordons of the world. I look at that caliber of player. That's the kind of caliber of player you need to help Donovan. Like Zach LaVine on the wing, with Mike Conley at the point and Donovan on the other wing, would be a nice, setup. So my point is yeah, you're not going to get James Harden. You're not getting KD. You're not getting Kyrie. You're not getting LeBron. You're not getting Giannis. You're not getting that cut of player. That does not mean that you can't put a team together that is capable of winning an NBA championship.
But should you not be in the market for Bradley Beal?
Yeah,
should you
perfect example.
Right? Like there are guys in the East that are going to get traded, because I think everybody pretty much anticipates Milwaukee and Brooklyn are going to be the last 2 teams standing in the East.
Right.
Bradley Beal's a guy that, by all accounts, is sitting out there ready to go.
Yeah.
If you look at the Houston Rockets, they went and got John Wall. What would the Utah Jazz be like with John Wall? Go get an impact player.
Yes.
That can make a difference. Take out Royce O'Neal, plug in Bradley Beal, and what is this team like?
Western Conference Finals winner.
It's
because then what happens? Then you've got a dominant scorer in Bradley Beal. He won't put up 40 when he's playing next to Donovan, but he'll give you 30. He'll give you 25 to 30, 10 boards, couple of assists.
Yes.
He's a playmaker. And by the way, he's a guy that you can play, and I don't know how many people listening have watched a lot of Nets basketball, but the Nets have the problem where they've got 3 superstars, so they rotate these guys in and out. So my point is for the Jazz, if they were to get Bradley Beal, they would have then the ability to rest Donovan a little more, play Bradley Beal, and your scoring wouldn't fall off the same way it does. Because that's the other issue here. Your bench is not great either, so you don't have a lot of depth. You don't have the only really difference-making guy is Donovan Mitchell right now. So I love the idea of Bradley Beal. I think that'd be great.
That's the kind of move they have to make. If you are truly sure that you are not going to be able to sign a superstar in free agency, go trade for one, because it really is the only way that business gets done at that level in the NBA. And if you make a 3-team deal, I mean, again, who are you willing to give up? I guess that's a different show, but
well, I think the concept of who you're willing to give up is just simply based in what you're trying to do. So it's as a front office, is your goal in calling teams to make trades and put something together? Are you trying to get a wing scorer like Bradley Beal? Are you trying to get I don't even really know how to describe it other than to just say a little bit lower cut of a player, but somebody who can make an impact. So again, like an Aaron Gordon or a Zach LaVine, let's say, that level of player. What are you trying to do? And based on what you're trying to do, that should dictate what you're willing to give up. And I think, again, this is why for me personally, the Gobert thing is so frustrating to me, that contract, because of what it does to your ability to make moves and edit this roster.
He's guaranteed $205 million after this season.
That's what I'm saying. Literally, 2 players are taking up 60% of your cap. So the difference is the Lakers have that situation. The difference is they have LeBron James, one of the best players the game's ever seen, right? No shade to Donovan Mitchell or Rudy Gobert, but they're not LeBron. You know what I mean?
I would trade Mike Conley in a second.
I would too. Yep.
I mean, he's got a number at $34 million. Mm-hmm. I don't believe he's signed past this year, but he's got a number in $34 million that is a very tradable number.
Yep.
I look at some of their other numbers and if I could get a Bradley Beal, are you going to trade a Bogdanovich?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
You would.
Absolutely, without a doubt. Wouldn't even second guess it, because the difference is...
But wait, then you would have 2 Bogdanoviches on the well...
Take it easy.
Anyway.
Take it easy.
In the same conference.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, but my point is the reason I wouldn't second guess making that deal is because, again, Bogdanovich is not a guy who goes and gets his off the dribble or can create. He needs somebody to feed him for the most part. And so, again, the Jazz need somebody who can create other than Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do. Make sure you follow us on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button, The Monty Show, Monty, The Monty Show. Hit subscribe. Put a thumbs up on all of our videos. Every day on YouTube, you get a live stream and you get 2 or 3 other highlights from the show of the major conversations we had. For instance, today, we will be talking about the Jimmer. So you'll get a Jimmer for Debt video today. That's why you want to hit subscribe.